Can you explain to me, as a professor to a fifth grader, what and who is involved in the Iran, USA, Israel conflict, and who controls the Strait of Hormuz? What's the overall history of the region? In the outline of the recent 15 years of maneuvering between superpowers in the region, how is Russia and China involved? What are some theories of how to proceed? Or what if this or that happens? What might happen next? Okay. Imagine we're sitting in a big classroom rug, and I'm going to explain one of the most complicated stories in the world using playground rules you already understand. Ready? Okay, the playground analogy. Imagine the Middle East is a giant playground. In one corner sits Iran, a kid who used to be friends with the cool kids, the USA and Israel, but had a huge falling out in 1979. Since then, Iran wears a different team jersey and doesn't trust the USA at all. In another corner sits Israel, a kid who feels surrounded by kids who don't like them and who is very protective of their own safety. Israel and Iran are not friends. Then there's the USA, the biggest kid on the playground, who used to be friends with Iran's leaders before 1979, but now tries to keep Iran from getting too powerful. So the water bottle everyone fights over, the Strait of Hormuz. Picture, if you will, a narrow hallway between two classrooms. That's the Strait of Hormuz, a tiny water passage, only about 21 miles wide. At its narrowest point, about 20 to 25% of all the oil in the world travels right through there every day. It's like the only water fountain in a school of 8,000 kids. So who controls it? Iran sits on the north side of the hallway. Oman sits on the south side. Under international law, it's supposed to be open to everyone. But because Iran has a big navy and missiles right there, they can threaten to close the door whenever they want. Wow, in 2026, Iran actually did close it for a while, causing huge problems for the world. Think of it like this. Iran doesn't own the hallway, but they have a big stick leaning against the wall right next to it. They can block it, and that makes everyone nervous. So, the story of why everyone is mad. A quick history. So, the old days before 1971. Not super ancient old, but how many? 50 years ago? No, 40 something. So, Iran had a king called the Shah. And he was the best friend with the US and Israel. USA even helped Iran start a nuclear program. A nuclear program? Yes, but for peaceful energy. Peaceful energy, like a power plant. But in 1979, the Iranian people had a revolution. They threw out the Shah of Iran, the king, and created a new government that said, the US is not our friend anymore. They even took American hostages at the embassy. That was called the Iran hostage crisis. The nuclear problem. Those are the 2000s. Fast forward to the 2000s. Iran started building more nuclear stuff. The USA and Israel got worried. Are they building a power plant? Or are they secretly building a bomb? It's like if someone in class started collecting chemistry equipment. Maybe they're just curious, or maybe they're planning something dangerous. And in 2015, there was a peace deal. Okay, so after years of arguing, Iran and 6 big countries made a deal called JCPOA. Wow, those 6 big countries included Russia and China. It was USA, UK, France, Russia, China, and Germany. The JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. It was like a contract. Iran, you promised to only use nuclear stuff for peaceful reasons, and we will lift the punishments, the sanctions that are hurting your economy. So Iran agreed to let inspectors check their work, but then there was a deal breaker. A few years later, in 2018, President, in his first term, Trump, said, "This is a terrible deal. Terrible deal. The art of making a deal." What's the big deal? "This is a terrible deal," and ripped it up like a homework assignment. He didn't like it. He put the punishments back hard. Iran got angry and started breaking the rules too, enriching more uranium than allowed. Oh no, what should we do? So the tensions built in 2020 through 2024. In January 2020, the USA killed Iran's most famous military leader, General Qasem Soleimani, with a drone. Iran was furious. Then, during the Israel-Hamas war that started in 2023, Iran's friends like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza were weakened by Israel. Iran started looking more vulnerable. Then they had a 12-day war. That was in June of last year, June 2025. Israel and Iran actually fought each other directly for 12 days. So Israel hit Iran's military and nuclear sites, and the US helped out by dropping giant bunker buster bombs on Iran's underground nuclear facilities. It was like a really scary fist fight that ended with both sides being bruised but still standing. Protests and crackdowns. That's late 2025. So after the 12-day war, Iran's economy was a mess. People in Iran started protesting in the streets, saying their government was failing them. And the government cracked down brutally. Thousands of people were killed. The US watched this and got even more involved. Then in February through June 2026, let's see what happened. Well, on February 2028, the US and Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran. They even killed Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, the most powerful person in Iran. Imagine someone took out the principal, the mayor, and the police chief all at once. Iran fired back with hundreds of missiles and drones. The fighting spread to Lebanon, where Iran's ally Hezbollah was already at war with Israel. Millions of people had to leave their homes, I guess mostly in Lebanon. Iran also closed the Strait of Hormuz, threatening any ship that tried to pass. The world panicked because oil prices shot up and some countries started running low on fuel. After weeks of fighting, the US and Iran agreed to a ceasefire April 2026. April, May, June, July, that must have been 3 months ago. But they kept arguing about the Strait of Hormuz. The US even put a naval blockade around Iran, like putting a fence around Iran's port so no ships could get in or out. Finally, on June 17, that's only a few weeks ago, the president of the USA and Iran signed a deal to stop the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Yay! But everyone is still nervous. So, the last 15 years of superpower maneuvering. So that was from 2011 to 2026. There's a table that shows the year and what happened. So 2011, the Arab Spring. 2012 through 13, secret talks in Oman. 2015, the JCPOA nuclear deal was signed. Hopes for peace. In 2016, it went into effect. The sanctions were lifted. Iran's economy started improving. But Trump decided to tear it apart in 2018. Trump ripped up the deal. Maximum pressure sanctions returned. Iran's economy crashed. 2019, tensions spiked. Ships were attacked in the Gulf. Iran shot down a U.S. drone. 2020, USA killed General Soleimani. Iran fired missiles at U.S. bases. COVID-19 hit Iran hard. 2021 through 2023, Biden tried to revive the deal, but talks failed. Iran got closer to building a bomb. Meanwhile, Iran's allies, Hamas, Hezbollah, Assad, and Syria were weakened. 2024, Israel and Iran traded direct missile strikes. They hit each other back and forth. Israel destroyed much of Iran's air defense. In 2025, there was the 12-day war. Iran's economy collapsed. Mass protests were crushed. They turned off their internet. The Iranian regime turned off the people's internet, so people wouldn't know what horrible things they were doing to them. In 2026, the USA-Israel war against Iran started in February. The Trump's war, the Iran war. The Strait of Hormuz was closed. A deal was finally signed recently in June. Now remember that the playground has more than 3 kids. There's 2 other giants that are mostly watching, but they're involved. Those are Russia and China. So Russia is like the big kid who's already in a fight with the US over Ukraine. Russia saw Iran as a friend who could help distract the US. During the 2026 war, Russia reportedly gave Iran satellite photos showing where American warships were. It's like passing notes in class to help your friend cheat on a test. Russia also condemned the USA and Israel loudly at the United Nations. Russia wants the USA to be stuck in the Middle East because then that means the USA has less attention and money for Europe. Maybe then Russia will win in the Ukraine-Russia war. I guess that's the Russia attempt to take over some parts of Ukraine or much of it. And that's been going on for a while. So China, what's China doing? China is the kid who buys a lot of oil from Iran. So the Strait of Hormuz is super important to China because their ships need to pass through it to get oil to them. So China didn't send soldiers to help Iran, but they did provide advanced radar systems to Iran. China's approach was more careful than Russia's. They said, everybody stop fighting. And they tried to look like the calm, reasonable kid. And of course, China wants stability because they need the oil to keep flowing. But they also enjoy watching the USA struggle because it makes the USA look less powerful. So the axis is forming. So Russia and China are becoming closer friends, what experts would call a no-limits partnership. So they trade oil, technology, and military help. They both want a world where the US isn't the only boss. So by helping Iran survive, they weaken the USA's position. So what are the big ideas for fixing this mess? Well, smart people around the world have different ideas about what should happen next. So here's some theories. Number one, make a better deal idea. So some people say, let's write a new, stronger nuclear deal. So Iran can have nuclear power for electricity, but absolutely no bombs. In return, we will lift sanctions slowly, and if Iran cheats, the punishments snap back automatically. This is like a contract with a really strict teacher watching. What about the containment idea? Others say Iran will never be trustworthy. We should surround them with strong friends, keep tough sanctions, and make sure Iran cannot threaten anyone. We don't need a deal, we need a cage. So this is like putting a troublemaker in a timeout that is permanent. And now let's consider this other idea. Let's call it the engagement idea. So the more we punish Iran, the angrier Iran gets. So let's talk to them. Let's trade with them. Let's hope that over time the Iranian people will choose a friendlier government. This is like inviting the lonely kid to lunch and hoping that the lonely kid stops being so mean or annoying or something. So there's another idea. It's called the regional peace idea. So the problem isn't just Iran. The whole neighborhood is broken. We need Israel, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and everyone else to agree on rules. Isn't like a playground treaty where everyone promises not to hit each other. Now let's look at some what ifs. So what if Iran builds a nuclear bomb? Israel has already said they would never allow this. If Iran got a bomb, the other countries like Saudi Arabia and Turkey might want one too. Suddenly, the most dangerous neighborhood in the world has multiple kids with matches and gasoline. The risk of terrible accident or war goes way up. Now, what if the USA leaves the Middle East? Russia and China would rush in to fill the space. Iran would become much more powerful. Israel might feel so alone that they might take more aggressive actions. Some Gulf countries might secretly make deals with Iran just to survive. It would be like removing the teacher from the playground. Chaos might follow. What if the new Iran deal fails? So if this June 2026 deal falls apart, we could see the war restart. Iran might close the Strait of Hormuz again. Oil prices would again skyrocket. It's already at $4 around that. Maybe it'd go up to 5 or 6. Countries in Asia might run out of fuel. Maybe India also needs oil from Iran. The global economy could get sick like when COVID happened, but for energy. Now, what if Russia and China get even closer? What if Russia and China keep helping each other? They could create a whole separate team on the playground. They might build new trade routes that bypass the USA entirely. The world could split into 2 competing clubs, making everything harder, from buying toys to making peace. Now, what if the Iranian people overthrow their government? This is a wild card. The Iranian people are young, educated, many want to be friends with the world. If they changed their own government peacefully, everything could transform. But history shows that when outside countries try to force this, it usually backfires and makes things worse. So here's the bottom line. Here's what I want you to remember. So, number 1, the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most important oil hallway. Iran can threaten to close it, which gives them enormous power, like a kid standing by the only water fountain. Number 2, Iran and the USA and Israel have been enemies since 1979. That is, Iran being enemy of the US and Israel. And the fighting keeps getting worse because of nuclear fears, proxy wars, and old grudges. Then there's number 3, Russia and China. They're using this war to fight. They're using this fight to weaken the USA and build their own team. They don't want Iran to collapse, but they also don't want the Middle East to explode because they need the oil. And number 4, so the last 15 years or so have been a cycle of deal-making, deal-breaking, proxy fights, and now direct wars. The June 2026 agreement is a pause, not a permanent peace. And the last point is number 5. There are no easy answers. Every choice has big risks. The world is watching to see if these grown-ups can learn to share the playground before someone gets really hurt. Someone or everyone. Okay, so I'm going to call this World War III. Maybe in about 5 or 10 years, if the world survives, they will start calling it World War III. It's just hasn't exploded so much yet. It hasn't relatively hasn't caused millions of deaths so far yet. Could be a nuclear holocaust to come about somehow.